If loving you made me a fool, tell me, should I remain a fool?
She didn't leave because he cheated. She didn't leave because he was broke. She left because he loved her too much. And when she paid another woman 15 million naira to destroy him, he had already been watching her the entire time. Meet Nanetta, the woman who got tired of being loved. And meet David, the man who gave her everything. Everything. And still, it wasn't enough. David grew up in a house where love looked like war. His father's voice was a weapon. His mother's tears were a nightly ritual. Plates, insults, silence, repeat. And every night, a little boy sat alone in the dark, hands over his ears, making a promise nobody heard but him.
My wife will never feel like this. Never. I promise to love her.
He kept that promise. He worked when others rested. He saved when others spent. And then he found Nanetta. Beautiful, magnetic, the kind of woman who doesn't walk into a room, she arrives. David didn't just love her. He chose her every single day without conditions. But here's where it gets complicated. After they married, David became the husband most women only read about. He never raised his voice, not once. When she was wrong, he apologized anyway. When she refused to cook, he cooked. When she was cold, he stayed warm. He earned 1.3 million naira every month, and every single month, he handed her 1 million. 1 million, just so she could be comfortable. He thought this was what love looked like. He had no idea what was coming. But nobody warns you about this. Nobody tells you that peace, real, steady, unshakable peace, can feel like a prison to someone who grew up believing love is supposed to have edges. Nanetta started to feel something she couldn't name at first. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't loneliness. It was boredom. She picked fights just to see him react. He apologized. She ignored him for days. He gently checked on her. She pushed him away. He gave her space, then came back with the same quiet warmth every single time. One night, she sat alone staring at the ceiling and whispered,
"This man is boring. No fight, no argue, just saying sorry all time, man." I will just leave him, but I don't know how, if he's indeed a good man. Let's just end it. He's indeed a good man. But what kind of man is this? No fire, no drama, no rage. Is this even a real marriage?
And that thought, that small, ungrateful, poisonous thought, didn't leave. It grew. But that's not even the worst part. Because Nanetta didn't just get frustrated and walk away. She made a decision. A cold, calculated, unforgivable decision. If he won't give me a reason to leave, I will build one. She found a woman named Linda. Beautiful, available, persuadable.
Please help me do something very important. I will give you 15 million naira. All this money for me. What will I do?
All you have to do is seduce my husband. Linda refused. At first, but 15 million naira has a way of rearranging a person's conscience. The plan was simple. Text David, flirt, invite him to a hotel, and the moment he arrived, Nanetta would burst in, catch them together, and finally have her exit, her justification. Because in her mind, she couldn't leave a good man without a reason, so she decided to manufacture one from scratch. What she did next shocked even me. Linda sent the first message. David saw it, said nothing. She sent another, then another, until finally he replied. Now here's what you need to understand about David. This was a man who grew up watching deception up close, who had spent his entire life reading silence, reading rooms, reading people. Something about that conversation felt wrong. The urgency, the specific hotel, the way she pushed. A stranger doesn't push like that. But instead of confronting Nanetta, he did something far more intelligent. He played along. That evening, David arrived at the hotel. He sat across from Linda, ordered a drink, made small talk. Nothing happened. Nothing was going to happen. He was simply waiting. And then, she thought she had won. She thought this was the moment everything ended. The door exploded open.
This is what you've been
Nanetta
doing?
stormed in, shaking,
You're here with
screaming,
another one?
performing the most theatrical betrayal she had ever rehearsed.
How could you do this to me, David? I can't believe this. You've been lying to me all this time. I trusted you.
David sat perfectly still. He didn't flint. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even blink. He just looked at her, the way you look at someone you once recognized but no longer do. Nanetta screamed until she ran out of words, and then silence. David stood up slowly and spoke, quietly, calmly, like a man who had been carrying these words for a very long time. I know.
I know.
Nanetta froze.
I knew everything from the moment she sent that first message. I knew it was you.
Linda stood up without a word and walked out. And David looked at the woman he had loved, adored, sacrificed for, and finally said everything he had been swallowing for years.
I just needed to see how far you were willing to go.
You were tired of me because I gave you peace?
Because I gave you peace. I gave you 1 million naira every month out of 1.3, just so you could live well. I cooked, I cleaned, I apologized when you were wrong, just to keep us from falling apart. He paused, then said the line that will follow you home tonight.
My mother warned me, never show a woman too much love or she will take you for granted. And tonight,
You showed me why
you showed me why she was right.
Nanetta's knees gave way. Not dramatically, not like in the movies. She just crumpled, the way people do when the performance ends and the real terror sets in. She was on the floor, crying the ugly, heaving, terrified kind of cry that has no audience. Please, she whispered, don't leave me. David stood over her, and there were tears in his eyes too, because this man still loved her, even now. Even after all of this, he looked down at her and said,
If loving you made me a fool, tell me, should I remain a fool?